in. Happy to have you. Lorianne, good to see you.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. So come on in. We're giving every other parent just a few more minutes to hop in. Some people are just getting in from their work day and making sure everyone can get the access to get on the Zoom. So in about a minute or so, we are going to get started and we're very excited. Good to see you, Diana.
Good to see you too. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm doing good, thank you.
Hello, Miss Shanna.
Salut, bonjour. Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
We
Looking
have
forward to
Mercy.
connecting with you.
Monet, you were giving me the fire emoji on Instagram. Welcome.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Good night. Glad to be here.
Welcome. Come on in. So, yeah. So, guys, we are going to be respectful of everyone's time. We want to hop in. I'm also going to be uh, making sure everyone has access. Some people just join us on social media, they'll join us live. So, I'm going to make sure that they have access. Okay. We have Sophia coming in as well. Shout out to the moms as well right now, right? The moms show up,
Hello.
Shayna. The moms show up all the time.
Always. Literally anyone and everyone who contacts me, except for one parent, always the moms. I support
Yes.
it. I
Oh,
support all of you.
kudos to the mommies. Okay. All right. So, everyone who's on the call, I want to also encourage you, if you don't right now, these are the type of calls where it's great if we can see you. If we can't, that's completely fine. But it is one of those workshops where, there is going to be room and space for you to ask questions. There's going to be space for you to write a note or two and save it for a conversation, right? Either during the call or after. So just feel free. I invite you to take the liberty to write some notes and do not hold back, okay? It's a very safe space. Not very often do we get a chance for our our education consultants and experts to give you another lens into what the French immersion program is. So that is what this call intends to do. We are making sure we're going live. My second live for the day on my page.
That's
All
fantastic. It
right, so I'm
just means
happy
that you're
to get us,
educating.
yeah, right?
Sorry.
So I'm happy to get us all started. Good evening again to everyone who is joining us. My name is Elise. I am the founder here at the French Tutor, where we are so keen on making sure that our French immersion students are excelling in the language, are navigating the language in a way that is specific to their learning, and building the confidence and closing any gaps that need to be closed. So we do very often like to partner with other experts in the French field and in the education space. And today I'm so thrilled to welcome Shayna, who is going to be facilitating a workshop that is very specific to French immersion parents. So the French immersion parents on the Zoom call, you guys are in for a treat. Those watching live, you're also in for a treat. Shayna is going to walk us through and have a conversation that maybe we aren't used to having. I know sometimes in a classroom setting, we can only ask the teacher so much or only be shared back information so much. So today is our time for an open space to get some deeper insights, to get a lens and get a real view of what pathways exist for your child who is currently in French immersion. So I will allow Shayna to introduce herself. And I invite you, like I said, to ask questions, take notes, because we're in for a treat. Welcome, Shayna.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful introduction. Oh my goodness. I'm actually just going to share my screen so that I could follow up or continue after such a Great explanation. Thank you so much, Elise.
You're
So
welcome.
let's get going. I don't have any sound that I need to share. So here we go. Awesome. I'm assuming everyone can see a blue screen that says possible pathways after French immersion. Awesome. Thank you. Let's turn that up a bit. All right, and my name is Shana Batiste Ishayemi, and I'll introduce myself in just a moment. So I like to tell folks that usually my presentations are about 15 minutes because I'm all about the conversation afterwards, okay? So this is the agenda. I'm just gonna start with introducing myself, and then I wanna jump right into what I feel language is. So language as an ability, and then we're gonna move on to expertise as a must. And then I'm gonna teach and talk to you about educational programs as a guide. And then we're going to just talk about some possible next steps, whether your child is in elementary school or about to transition to secondary school. And then we're going to conclude and open up the floor to the Q&A. So I think we'll have about 40 minutes for Q&A today. So a little bit about myself. I am the creator and founder of Faire Sens, or Faire Sens Consulting Services, where I actually act as the French as a second language consultant. That's how I started. I'm all about helping parents, guardians, and caregivers navigate and make sense of the French as a second language curriculum. So that could look like, consultations on the phone before registering your child, comparing, contrasting, and explaining to you what exists to help you make the best choice for your child. I also do assessments, just if you're looking for a second opinion or you're just wanting to know if your child is performing at grade level. And I've recently introduced report card reviews, where if you would love for someone to look at the whole holistic approach of where your child is at academically, I do that. And I am a career development consultant, which is all about what I want to talk to you about today in relations to careers, right? And what your child can do after the fact. And why can I do that? Well, I'm actually a bilingual career coordinator by day. That's my daytime job. I work at a university. I help students and recent graduates who are bilingual or speak multiple languages. I used to teach French and careers with the Toronto District School Board and the York Region District School Board, respectively. How am I able to do all of that? I guess I've been busy. I'm a certified career strategist, certified resume strategist. I'm also trained as a guidance counselor, guidance and career education. I also decided I wanted to also learn about cooperative education, which I'm going to talk to you about today. And I went to school with a bachelor's of education to teach, and I have a BA in French studies. And lastly, I did live and study in France because before all of these certifications, we call it formation, I guess, if you will, I actually couldn't really speak French. So in order to be a French teacher, I decided I should probably work on that. So I actually moved to France, and I studied, and I was an au pair, and that's how I became bilingual. So on that note, language as an ability. I think it's really important to understand the difference. So when one learns a language to become bilingual, or even multilingual, the main goal is to be able to listen, speak, read, and write in that target language, okay? And this allows them, of course, to then interact with people who communicate using that exact same language. And it even allows them to function in a space or society that operates fully or partially in that language, right? So that's why we're learning languages. Again, at times it's a second, third, fourth, or even fifth. But this is actually why learning French affords your child a certain level, I call them superpowers, that would not be available otherwise to someone who does not speak the same language. However, I really want to drive home that French is a skill. It's not a specialization. Okay, so a person cannot expect to pursue certain career paths simply because they've mastered the language. So what I tell students when I'm working in the day is you can't show up to an interview and say, hire me, I speak French, right? It doesn't work that way, but it definitely is an asset, right? That's part of your toolkit, if you will. So then that brings me to expertise as a must. A specialization is what your child will eventually bring to the table when they're applying and then interviewing for future professions, okay, or careers. Now, it's a combination of technical and hands-on learning that they would have learned or acquired both inside and outside of the classroom. right? So while they might be still young, they're in the classroom for sure, learning French as a language. They're even learning subjects in French. But don't forget that hands-on learning also can take place and should take place outside of the classroom. So for example, one can specialize in plenty of areas. I've only named a few, but for example, project management, social media marketing, coding, or me. I didn't even know career development existed, and here I am. Now I'm certified to do so, right? So these are specializations. It means that you needed a certain combination of training to be able to do your job. So as a result, specializations can be a product of one's personal and professional interests, passions, and even just an overall desire to help people. I've always wanted to help people. I've always wanted to teach, right? Which is why I had to go to teachers college, right? You can't just show up. Hopefully, you don't just show up to a school and start teaching students, right? You need to go through a process. So this is why it's extremely important that your child is given the opportunity to explore and properly understand their passions and their interests. And essentially, as these are fundamental to pursuing their future specializations. Now, it has an S because we live in an age now where you don't just go to work or choose a career for 40 years. That's done. It just doesn't exist anymore. Quite frankly, people are changing careers every 5 years. Sometimes every year, they're just like, you know what? I want to try something different. And again, it could still be in the same, how we call it, like industry. It's just they're changing their hats. They're changing their roles. So how do you help your child? And this is where I wanted to really spend some time. Educational programs, excuse me, as a guide. So therefore, in my opinion, when your child's in elementary school, you really need to encourage them to sign on to the career planning platform that their school board has partnered with to see what career options are out there and what subjects are required to pursue them. So many people don't realize that every single school board has partnered either with My Blueprint or Cello. Cello used to be called Career Cruising. Okay, so if you haven't done that yet, it's not too late. Just literally after the call today, ask your child, what account do you use? Is it My Blueprint? Is it Cello? And they're going to be surprised. They're going to be surprised, and just ask them for their username and password. And if they don't know it, you can ask their teacher. So again, that's what's being used in the GTA as an educational and career planning resource. It has a lot of information, a wealth of knowledge, but also if you're not familiar with it, it's actually what you need to use in grade 8 to choose your child's classes or courses or subjects in conjunction with them for high school. So this platform will come up in your life. You're always in grade 8, but I'm encouraging you to actually access it earlier than that. Once in secondary school, I'm also asking that you consider and have a conversation with your child with regards to the following opportunities to better guide them on their professional journey. So these are all free hands-on experiences that exist in high school. Specialized high school skills major is called SHISM. Dual credit programs, cooperative education, I touched on that a little bit, also known as co-op, and the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program, OYAP. So some of these programs actually can be completed in French, whereas others must be done in English. So I will say that in high school, most, if not quite frankly, all of these are usually done in grade 11 and 12, just disclaimer. So I know some of us on the call, your child's only 7 years old, but I want to teach this because even when I taught careers, I would try to explain this to parents and they didn't know it existed. They just didn't know. So I want to make sure that I help you out today. So we're going to talk about them very lightly. And then we'll ask, if you have questions, I can definitely share. So with regards to SHISM, this, again, the specialist high skills major, this actually only came out in 2006, by the way. It's a specialized high school program that allows students to earn their diploma and also focus their learning on a specific economic sector at the same time. So this is all about helping your child explore a particular career sector. They actually have 19 SHISM sectors in Ontario, okay? But it depends on the school board. So again, if your child's in elementary school. Oh, sorry. Thank you. So as I was saying, in Ontario, this program comes with 19 options, 19 sectors, but it depends on your child's school board because there's a lot of work that goes into it to make sure they can deliver it. So it's actually great to learn about this now, because when you are looking for your child's high school, if they're continuing in the French immersion program or going to the English stream, but still pursuing French in high school, you could always just have a look to see what neighboring high schools offer a SHISM. So just to add, even though there are 19 different sectors, the most popular are arts and culture, business, and the health and wellness SHISM. I've also seen folks try to offer the hospitality and tourism SHISM. But again, if we're talking about pathways, right, what a great opportunity to consider and talk to your child about, because they're already going to get their diploma. And it actually comes with reach ahead opportunities. They can get free CPR certification, certain bonus, if you will, hands-on experiences if they're signed up and it's part of their high school plan. This brings me to dual credit programs. And if I'm not mistaken, this was introduced just in 2005. So the dual credit programs actually allows eligible students in high school to go to college. They can take college courses or level 1 apprenticeship training that counts towards their high school diploma, and get a credit that could count towards a post-secondary certificate, diploma, degree, or a certificate of apprenticeship. And when I learned about this when I was teaching, I was like, this is insane. So really everything is free. At least when I was in York Region, they give the student a Presto card. If they are in a cooking course, for example, they buy the chef's jacket, they get everything, and just they pick one day a week and they send your child to college. Imagine. So this is why I'm so passionate about hands-on experiential opportunities, because they are available in high school. Again, grades 11 and 12 are when these are the most popular, and sometimes the only time they are available. The third out of 4 options is the co-op option. Actually, this is the only one that existed when I was in high school. And co-op essentially provides opportunities for high school students to participate in an unpaid work placement to apply classroom learning. Okay, so this one's more geared for them to get a certain level of workplace experience. They'd start by taking like the credited course. They start in class, they learn everything they need to do when it comes to safety, health and safety, and then they get to go to work, essentially. And what great way to add to their resume before they even leave high school. Again, to clarify, this one can be done in French and also the SHISM. I forgot to add that part. It's a lot harder to do dual credit. Let me take a step back. I apologize, just because I can't speak in if you're visual. SHISM can be done in French if your child's in French immersion or in a Francophone school board. Just wanted to clarify. And dual credit, not so much, because your child would be going to college. The college course would have to be offered in French. We only have 2 colleges in Ontario that are Francophone. That is Collège Boréal and La Cité. This one for sure can be in French, because again, if your child's in French immersion or attends a Francophone school, essentially their teacher would just make sure they've actually reached out to a Francophone organization, place of work, so that your child can go there. And lastly, the Ontario Youth Apprenticeship Program is actually a specialized program in high school, as it says there, that allows your child to explore an apprenticeship. So an apprenticeship has to do with the skilled trades, okay? And it allows them to either start in grade 11 and 12, and it's usually in conjunction with a co-op. So you actually can stack some of these opportunities, which I think is fantastic. If I remember correctly, there are 4 categories of skilled trades. There are plenty of skilled trades that I won't go into right now, but this is all about that category. Okay, if your child, again, can speak French, remember, French is a skill, it's not a specialization. So essentially, depending on the end goal, if they're going to be a chef, they're going to run their own restaurant, if they're going to be a mechanic, if they're going to work in with the category of mechanics, whatever the case may be, electrician, construction, right? They can do that, but also do that in 2 languages or multiple languages. So just a reminder of how this works together. So what should you do? Possible next steps. So I know we have different people on the call in different situations, and those watching live. Whether in elementary school or secondary school, I'm encouraging you to schedule a meeting with your child's French teacher. I know report card just went home last month. I know parent-teacher interviews already happened, right? But usually parent-teacher interviews are 5 minutes. You get that little block and it's like a rushed situation and you kind of have to just quickly ask one question or two questions. But that's different. I'm talking about actually scheduling a meeting with your child's French teacher, the one that teaches them listening, speaking, reading, and writing, if you have any concerns about their ability to effectively use the language, okay? Again, whether they're in elementary or secondary school. But if in secondary school, this is a difference now, have your child schedule a meeting with their guidance counselor to better map out pathway plans in addition to what they're expected to do in their grade 10 course. It's called careers. The reason I say this is because in high school, the careers course is mandatory. It's called civics and careers. They get half a credit and it's just half a semester. Sometimes it's 8 weeks, sometimes it can be 9. They are required to look into pathways. They're required to research a career. They're required to do a project portfolio. Sometimes they might be asked to do a resume interview, what have you. But that's because they need to start thinking about grade 11, 12 and post-secondary or the workplace. But you still need that guidance counselor appointment, in my opinion, because grade 10 careers is only, like I said, half a semester. And we want to make sure that the pathway makes the most sense. I say that because I'm still talking about pathways in my daytime role with students and recent grads, but also with students during open house when they're interested in trying to figure out if they want to come. So these conversations are absolutely imperative. What else can you do? Well, after having spoken with your child's French teacher, and with their guidance counselor, if you still feel like you need additional support, even a second opinion, I would recommend booking a report card review with Faire Sens. So by booking a report card review, I personally will analyze one recent progress report card and 2 recent provincial report cards. I do that on purpose because it gives me a full cycle picture of where your child is at, regardless of what grade they're in. Okay, I actually decode comments when it comes to the learning skills and work habits, in addition to specific subjects. And I even determine if there are any academic patterns of concerns for subjects taught in French, because the key, right, is that your child's going to be bilingual while they're figuring out their passions and exploring their options to figure out what that specialization is or specializations will be. But we want to make sure they're able to do so effectively in both languages, right? So I then discuss my observations and recommendations. After reading everything before the call, during the 30-minute video call, I talk to you about what I have seen and what I've observed, and then I email you everything. Findings, possible next steps afterwards. So this service is for students from grade 1s to 8 on purpose, because that grade 8 is that pivotal year. You really need to figure out, what the direction is, because they are then going to have to choose their pathways when it comes to high school. Lastly, stay connected. Follow us on social media. We'll have the slides. I'm going to email Elise afterwards, whether it's just checking out the resources, the free resources, blog, articles, French language support. It's all there on the website. You can email me if your questions don't get answered today, and options on social media. But really, this is all about you. For me, concluding, French Immersion program, it's a great opportunity. It really is, with many advantages, but I really want to drive home that French without a specialization initially will only yield jobs for your child in administration, customer service, food services, hospitality, and retail, because they would be able to support people in both French and English if needed. But remember, if they want to now become a bilingual nurse, a bilingual lawyer, a bilingual teacher, aka a French teacher, or Spanish, what have you, project manager, if you put the word bilingual in front of any career you can think of, then that means I've achieved my goal today, because bilingualism, again, it's a skill. So for additional support, check out the resource section, and that's where you'll find all that the free material that I spoke to you about on our website. Thank you so much. I hope you've learned something today. And now I'd love to take any questions that you may have.
That is amazing, Shayna. Thank you so much for all the gems that you shared. There's some things I didn't even know, right? Because there's things that didn't exist when I was in high school in terms of what is offered. And wow, imagine if we had the opportunity
I
to
wish.
do a co-op, right? In French, or even that whole what was that one called? Where you get to go into the work, but not the co-op, but the first one.
Like, uh,
The
the one you go to college?
Yeah, what do you go to college? That
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like I actually send you to college. Yeah. I wish.
thing.
I wish. And
Oh,
I did forget because I'm so always so passionate about this. I forgot to share my own experience. I did co-op. It's the only one that was available. I was a very academic student, studious, if you will. I stayed back at school. I did co-op. And that's actually how I realized that I didn't want to be an elementary school teacher for younger children
ah,
because I was a teacher's assistant in a grade 2 French immersion class. And I
interesting.
actually loved it because even though I realized that that group of students wasn't, because I didn't want to teach the language and teach social skills. Like
Yeah,
I didn't want to be responsible to
yeah,
socialize 6 year olds.
yeah,
I still knew I wanted to teach. And I did it for a semester. I literally stayed back and it was the best experience that, for me personally. And again, this is why I want to share with as many people who will watch this today that not only is there co-op now, there's 4 things you could do. And it's
yeah.
free. You just have to be prepared and make sure with your child, right, that you put the blocks together properly for their timetable.
Yeah, and ask the questions because sometimes, yeah, to even
Yes.
know there's this career portal, something exists. I'm sure a lot of
Yes.
parents on this call were like, what? What's that thing?
No, I've used both. I've used my blueprint, I've used Cello, I use career cruising at work. I use all of them. And I also recommend folks, I mean, you're the parents and guardians, but I have do the career quizzes every year. They're built into the platform. I know some of you, your kids might be young, but I was doing them every year and I encourage people because it's free. The school board's paid for it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I think you get my gist. I'm always ready to tell folks about this because they don't
yeah.
know. They don't
It's
realize.
all about getting the inside scoop, and sometimes it's not even the inside scoop, it's just the hidden scoop.
The
The
scoop.
hidden,
That's
the
right.
scoop. So yeah, let's
That's
open
right.
the floor for questions. To anyone on the call, feel free to unmute or put your camera on. This is your space, okay? That question you never got to ask at the parent-teacher interview, even if it
Yes.
slightly exists outside of today, I'm happy to have Shayna take a stab. Like if she can add some input or insight, I'm sure she'd be happy to.
I would love to. This is what I'm all about. Now, I
Anyone?
don't see any questions, but I'm also sharing my screen.
Yeah, let's see. Or if you are somewhere where you cannot unmute, feel free to type your question in the chat. Okay, or just come off mute if possible.
And I do want to encourage that if it's not directly linked to the topic today, but it's
Yeah,
within the realm of French immersion, I'm here. That's my
yes,
job. I'm a French as a second language consultant for you
yeah.
because they exist for teachers, but I realize the gap for these types of conversations. But I think Mercy might have a question. I'm not sure because your camera's on.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
Mercy go on camera. Yeah, hi.
Hi, thank you for the great info.
You're welcome.
I wanted to, my daughter is she's in grade 5, French immersion. So
Okay.
she started 4 and 5. So this is her second year.
Okay.
And she's in her teacher, her French teacher, she hasn't been back since the school year for January for
Okay.
some personal issue. And the currently, I guess their learning is shared by um, a French teacher who does a different class. And then so they do half French in the morning and then somebody comes in English half, whereas before, obviously, everything was in French.
Right.
So my question is, I'm struggling to support her
I see.
because the learning is not the same because
Yeah.
she's not fully getting what she was with her French teacher.
Okay.
So what do I do in this case? Because her elementary school, she's finishing grade 5 and then she's moving on to junior high for grade 6, 7, and then 8.
Okay. I'm just writing down the questions just so that I can agree. Because based on what you're describing, I feel like based on the boards that I cover, that sounds like the middle French immersion program, but I could be wrong
Yes,
in the TDSV.
that's
All
correct.
right. Okay. So grade 6 through 8. Sorry. And I guess I should have had it prepared, but I mean, I can also stop sharing and drop the link. This is where I would encourage, and you're going to get the slides, but this is where the resource page on our website will help you. I get no sponsorship from anybody on the page. I just put together a bunch of resources that I think would support students. I can get that to you. But unfortunately, it's like you're asking, it's where you're going to have to substitute a lot of her learning right now until that gap is filled. Unfortunately, a lot of the times there will be these situations where a teacher has gone on medical leave or mat leave, or there's just been an emergency and they can't return. And unfortunately, we are in a deficit or a shortage. Shortage is the better word, of qualified French teachers, let alone French immersion teachers. So I don't have the solution for the teacher. If I could send you one tomorrow, I would, but I can definitely send you resources. I don't know what workbooks you're using, if you were given any workbooks to work out of.
No.
So on the page, you're going to see there's a section called free, right? And it tells you exactly what it's for. And then there's a section for like paid workbooks. And I encourage that because it goes to Amazon, but that's because that's the only place I could find them.
Mhm.
But essentially, there are French immersion books for the language, and then science and math, and then there's just French books for grammar specifically or core French, and it says that. Also, you will see the lovely French Tutor Inc. on there, so you already have that connection when it comes to the language reading comprehension and whatever else she's doing through Elise's great program. But if I'm thinking about grade 5 and 6, that's all I can think of for now, because there's a section for summer camps, but it's March. So if you're ready, then you can also get her enrolled because they also all of these spaces offer March break support, but that's next week. Again, I'm kind of going through the list, but it's because even if the teacher wasn't there, even if the teacher had come back, I'll be very honest with you, the supplementation needs to happen anyway, which is why I have this page. So I think it's just your turn to see how much more you have to do this time around, but then it'll also just inform you of what's out there. Hope that makes sense.
No, it does. Thank you.
Okay,
No,
no
I
problem.
came across Elise's program, so I'm aware of it. I was going to sign her up for the March break. I think you probably got an email from me, but trying to decide what to do because it's March break and they want a break.
I know.
So
Yes.
I think
I know.
going forward, maybe perhaps after the March break, I may just sign her up for extra support because I think it's something that she's going to need anyway. But thank you.
No problem. I'm actually, because I'm sharing one screen, I can go and grab the link without embarrassing myself, hopefully. So I'm just going to drop that in the chat for everyone. Again, it'll be available through the slides, but please feel free. I strongly encourage you to have a look there because French Immersion is definitely a free program, public school, Catholic school. But what I tell folks during consultations, you're very welcome, is, you have to be ready to support like you are, Mercy. And a lot of it is at times supplementation.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Question in the chat, Shane, or a comment you
Yes.
want to touch on?
Absolutely. If I can say that this question is from Monet. Now that some district school boards have moved to French immersion starting in grade 1, are there any French immersion type programs for JKSK? This is to prevent a 2-year gap after preschool in French immersion. Okay, great question. So just to clarify, maybe Monet, do you have a child that's maybe in like a French speaking daycare, like a garderie francophone? Because you're talking about avoiding a gap. Let me see. Yes. Okay. So yeah, the new strategy, if you will, or maybe you're French speaking, right, is that folks put their child in a French daycare so that they actually have better chances of going to a francophone school board or just maintaining that French identity before going to French immersion. So I love your question because every single school board in Ontario adheres to the French as a second language curriculum differently. They are just mandated to meet the minimum expectations by the end of grade 8 when it comes to hours. So as long as everyone is doing 3,800 hours by grade 8, they can achieve and start French immersion whenever they want. So grade 1 was the traditional starting point always. SK, JK, and even grade 2 the other way are options that school boards have chosen. Out of the 10 school boards that I kind of, I don't want to say master, that I work with, I can think of TDSB definitely has the earlier grade 1. I'd have to circle back and come back to you. But even just telling you what they are, it could help, but then you'd have to ask yourself, are you willing to move to those areas? Because you can't go there unless you're zoned in that area. So I know I'm kind of vaguely responding. It's because they're all different. So if even if you found the area that they started in JK, they could do an audit of the program and then decide 2 years later that they have to start later. So I don't know if it's going to help to say where, but we can definitely I can definitely talk about that by email because I just don't have I literally have 12 documents open because every year I have to check because every year there's a change somewhere. Hopefully that helps you.
That's good
For
insight.
a little bit of clarity. No
Yeah.
problem.
It's amazing. Anyone else? We're getting some really great questions, really thoughtful questions. Did we have, so we're only seeing those who are either typing or coming off mute. So just let us just unmute, guys, and feel free to either say your question or type your question because we're only seeing ourselves.
Exactly. And it's funny because I actually have all my charts open. So let me, while I'm waiting, just open them all up for you because public and Catholic are different. It's a whole thing. So I've got so many boards that I've just opened. I hope I'm only just still sharing the presentation though. Elise,
Yeah,
you
you're
can
only still
confirm
sharing
that
the
for me.
Q&A slide. Yeah,
Okay.
you're all good.
Ooh, perfect. Okay, so to Monet's question, because I literally have so many boards that I do side-by-side screens for. So this year, if you will, in Toronto, Monet, TDSB starts in junior kindergarten, and so does Toronto Catholic District School Board. Again, that was as of this academic year, so 2024, 2025. That's our Toronto region. If I move to Halton, I can tell you that they do not start. If anything, they've started to shift. Peel region, I can tell you they're still at the traditional grade 1, both public and Catholic. Durham, still the traditional grade 1. So just to clarify again, it was always traditionally grade 1. Anybody who started earlier decided to do so. And lastly, our York region, still grade 1. So really Toronto within the GTA, I can't speak to, we have so many school boards. There are 60 school boards in Ontario. I only focus on 10. So Toronto is where it's at. All right, hope that helps you, Monet.
Anyone else want to get their questions in? Or honestly, guys, sometimes it's about maybe a particular feedback you got on a report card. You remember it, it's sticking in your brain, it's on your heart. You're like, what did that mean? Like, I'm not really sure. This is your chance to clarify that. This is what Shayna does for a part of her career, for sure. So we'd love to just get that and
Definitely.
yeah, happy to unpack anything that still needs
I think what I
clarification.
can I think what I can add, because maybe a lot of our listeners today are still in the early stages. Like I'm very
Yeah.
cognizant of the fact that a lot of the folks that I support they've just enrolled their child, or it's just been a couple of years. I think the oldest, not old, but the oldest student I've assessed was in grade 6, right? So I can understand if this is a far concept, but that's actually why I created this, because I'm noticing that almost nobody uses the career development support page on my website, and I'm not surprised anymore, but I was surprised at first, and that's because I realized that's the gap. There hasn't been a conversation of what that actually means for all students, let
Yes.
alone what that means for a student who is bilingual or pursuing bilingualism. So I will like to add, because you all got report cards, I do another workshop that, thanks to Elise, came together on how to ensure your child's excelling in French immersion. And I do a small portion about report cards, because I said I can look at report cards to decode because I know what to look for, but maybe you don't know what to look for. So if I could share, when your child's in French immersion, every school board is different. We've said that, right? Some do 100% from the beginning, some do 50-50, some do 66% because literally they cut up the hours. It's very interesting, the math. But do you know what subjects they're taking in French, right? If it's 100%, we know it's everything. Not everyone does that. So when you're looking at a report card, whether it's a progress report card or provincial, so progress November, provincial February and June, they actually have to check off the box where the subject is that says French for you to know it's taught in French. So maybe this workshop is great because you wanted to attend, but you're not there yet. So then let's address where you're at now. For me to decode and see if there's academic patterns of concern, that's what I'd be looking for. Like, I'm actually reading all the documents, looking for all the check boxes, because if those marks aren't the best, then that's actually going to inform you if your child's actually grasping material, because maybe the issue is they don't understand it in French. So this is why I'm talking about French is a skill, it's not a specialization, right?
Well,
Like, it's great that they're working on the skill, but at some point, if they're not able to master the language as a skill, then they're also missing out on that, the potential passions that would be connected to those future professions.
So in regards to you now
Oh,
assessing the report cards,
hi, so
is there
hi,
a fee?
Sophia.
Hi there. Is there a fee for that, or how does that go?
Yes,
For
so
the
all of
assessment?
my correct. So all of my services do have a fee. So this is wouldn't apply to you. Actually, I don't know who's on the call. A phone consultation is different. It's just on the phone. An assessment, I actually come to your house. I come to your home and I
if you live in the
administer a
GTA,
listening.
FYI, right?
Yes, like I will drive to you, and I do this on purpose because why not, right? Like, I've noticed that that allows you, one, to stay in your space and your child to be comfortable, but also it's on-site listening, speaking, reading, and writing test. And I do that on paper on purpose because I want to see what your child can do. Everyone asks for a virtual version. I say, no, I've done virtual. I've seen what students can do virtually. I need to know if they can write with the accents. I need to know if they actually can sit and, brainstorm. All that to say, these are paid services, yes. And the report card review is a new one that I finally introduced as a virtual option because I'm not assessing your child. Now I'm reading the documents that their teachers have put together because teachers have done the job. They're doing their work. I'm actually in solidarity with teachers. It's a hard job, but your child would have had different teachers, right? The progress report card is for this academic year. The provincial report card could also be for this academic year, but the other provincial report cards from the previous year, every teacher will assess your child differently because the curriculum is subjective. They only have to really focus on a few overalls. So I won't share the price just out of respect for the the style of the presentation and the evening, but yes, these are chargeable services.
And once you send the deck, that deck has that
Okay, thanks.
list. They can click
Yeah,
it.
thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
no
did you
problem.
share it in the group chat, you said? Sorry, in the text?
No, I
Oh,
think
not
we're
yet. I'm
going
going to
to
email her after the call.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then everything will be embedded in there, and then you can go from there
Okay, great.
if
Wonderful.
that works for you. No, thanks for asking. I appreciate it.
So I have a question on behalf of some parents. 'Cause I get the questions. I
Sure,
get them, Shayna, on the offline, right? So there are
of
a lot of
course.
parents who have students who are in the initial stages of French immersion. So for a lot, that could be between the grades 1 to 3 age groups. More and more, and I'm seeing it myself as well for those in the French tutor programming, we are seeing the lack of resourcing over the years is showing up. Meaning, we have
Yes.
our students in grades 1, 2, and 3 who really aren't fluent, even if it's for their grade level, where vocabulary is lacking, where some parents are starting to question, hey, is it a them thing? Is it a like who do we look to get some hope? One, and two, to get some insight. Like, is this something that you're seeing as well across the board? Just to give them a little bit of reassurance. And yeah,
Thank
just
you.
provide some light on
No,
that.
It's a great question. So what I always say to folks, so if someone contacts me for an assessment, for example, I actually first of all say, has your child been in the program for 2 years? I won't do I won't do an assessment if a child has not been in the program for 2 years. I made one exception, but I won't, because it takes a while to understand a new language. The whole purpose of the French immersion program was actually designed for Anglophones, Anglophones, and also to preserve the language. It's a French language minority is a right. Uh, um, in any case, it was for Anglophones to have the access to our country's second language and to be able to become bilingual. So for that reason, whether they're starting it in grade one traditionally, or the what's called middle immersion, or even extended French. I know this is about French immersion, but a lot of people don't even realize that extended French was always an option. We have
True.
3 options in Ontario to learn French: core French, extended French, and French immersion. I digress. If your child's Anglophone or they're speaking another language at home and you put them in this program, they need time. Okay, at least in a few of the boards I know, the first year the child is able to speak English in the class because they don't know the language. But by the end of the year, they're hoping for at least the effort to communicate with their peers in French and to communicate with their teacher. By the second year now is when we're really looking for the foundation to set, right? And again, that's unfortunately, there's always going to be supplementing, but you would do that if they were in the English track anyway. This is why I always consult folks to say, are you ready to have a child in French immersion? Are you ready for your child to be in a program that's fully or partially French immersion? Okay, so when it comes to grade 1, 2, and 3, now I'm seeing 3 as well, but grade 1 and 2, give them that chance, but also help them, right? Books in French, music, age appropriate in French, TV shows in French with French subtitles, not English. They need to see written French, right?
Yeah.
Activities, games, camps in French, right? I understand these things come with a cost. Not everything needs to be done at the same time, but even those grammar workbooks, I will admit that not just in French immersion, but in the English stream, they no longer focus on grammar.
Yeah.
They will not mark your kids explicitly on grammar anymore. I have my opinion about that. I'll leave that for now, but it's important. It literally are building blocks to communicate.
Yes.
So I would encourage those workbooks on the side. You can get them at Costco. I just didn't have the link for that. So my colleague who's a teacher told me about that. So those French Smart, Math Smart, English Smart, they have all of them in all the subjects. They have the answers in the back. Please, like let's re-promote language building blocks so that your child's comfortable to communicate, because reading and writing go hand in hand, listening and speaking go hand in hand. So if they're not if they're not reading a lot, they're not going to be able to see how they're supposed to write. And if they're not being asked to write a lot, or if they're not being assessed on their writing, then they can't autocorrect. If they are only listening and never speaking, then they're not going to be able to work on the other half, which is why I started off with language as an ability. It's all 4. If you can't do all 4, you're not bilingual or multilingual. Like you're not. All right. So when it comes to what's going on and what can we do, there are way too many factors. Your child they might not have a consistent French teacher, Elise. Maybe, again, they're in French immersion, they have a homeroom teacher who will teach them the language and sometimes at least 1 or 2 subjects. But then they go to a different teacher sometimes for math, right? Or sort of for physical education, science, like all this, especially if it's 100% system. So you're also going to see a variation of French. I don't mean accents. Accents are great. Anybody who speaks French and however they speak, I support. But the actual ability to teach at the French immersion level might vary, because they actually might not have a qualified French immersion teacher in their classroom. What does that mean? To work in a school board, we all need to have a BA, Bachelor's of Education, and vulnerable sector screening, OCT certified, unless they make exceptions for emergency teachers. But then to be a French teacher, you need to be assessed. I did many assessments, okay? Every board does it differently. And within the French assessment, they actually have another tier for French immersion. Because we don't have a lot of French immersion qualified teachers, teachers who are deemed core French will also take the job. It's not to be negative. It's just letting you know why there's just so many different variations and what that could look like for your child. What to do? The solution? Supplementing, asking questions, also connecting with your child. So I have some questions if you want to know what to ask your child's French teacher. It comes from another presentation, but I'll throw them in. Questions to ask your child's French teacher. Number 1, what diagnostic assessments did you use to assess my child at the beginning of the school year or term? I repeat, what diagnostic assessments did you use to assess my child or the class? It's not just them, the class at the beginning of the school year or term. This is important because all teachers have to do diagnostic assessments. They're also called assessment for learning or a formative assessments. And they could look like just an informal conversation. They could look like a checklist. They can look like a quiz. They can look like KTW chart, what they know, KWL, what they want to know. Doesn't matter. When you say diagnostic, they know. But you must also ask them, did my child arrive to your classroom at grade level? This is very important. They'll know exactly what I'm saying. Did my child arrive to your class at grade level? As soon as you ask that, they're going to have to say, yes, your child can operate at grade 4 level if they're in grade 4. Or they'll say no. And if they say no, you have to be prepared because your child might actually be at grade 3 level, grade 2 level, grade 1 level, even if there isn't a documented IEP. We could talk about that after. Second question, what strand is my child excelling in? Listening, speaking, reading, and/or writing. And this is important because that's why I started off the presentation talking about language as a skill, right? Their teacher, who is their homeroom French immersion or French language teacher, have to assess all of those categories. The education curriculum has a section for each of those strands for every grade, so they have to. And this is where the conversation is going to, and remember, this is a positive conversation. We're not here to attack the teacher. We're here to have a conversation. Because when you start asking this, they actually might be so grateful. Because then they can actually be like, oh my goodness, your daughter is actually a great communicator. She can speak, she can this, she can that, or whatever the case is. And number 3, last one for the teacher, which specific curriculum expectations is my child thriving in or excelling in? Okay, I think I messed up the wording on that last one, but I had that questioning in there because if you want, it's on my website as well, but there is a curriculum document for every subject in school. Every subject that your child takes, there's a document online, it's free to open for every grade. And every curriculum document has overall expectations and specific expectations. Overall expectations are the only thing that teachers have to teach by. As long as they can say, yes, your child can do 1, 2, 3 for each strand, they've done their job. Specific expectations are a guide for assessment and evaluation where the teachers actually get support to say, okay, if they can do those 3 things, how can they do that? Why don't you look for these types of markers or indicators? So when you ask a teacher, what specific expectations is my child meeting? Oh, they're going to be like, how do they know that? But it's more important that they have an answer for you because the specifics is where we're going to start to understand why your child, is not fluent, right? Or why there's a lack. I mean, the lack of resourcing is because there aren't enough resources in French for the French immersion program. It's always been like that. The teachers usually have to make it themselves, period. That's just how it goes, unfortunately. So I hope I've answered the question. It's a long answer, but it's because that's what I do. This is why I created the business. I have plenty of resources around these things, but those are my 3 golden questions that I encourage you to ask all your kids' teachers. You just have to change the wording a bit.
Totally. And I appreciate that. I feel the need to say amen because so much of what you said is just like, yes, because where I think parents, French immersion parents get feel very isolated, is just not knowing what to ask the teacher. There is that
Mhm.
feeling because you don't speak the language, you're just trusting what you know to be the expert. And
Right.
there is an empowerment from the questions I wrote, all the questions Shayna said in the
Thank
chat,
you.
for you to equip yourself to have the right conversations. Because sometimes, guess what? You're not even aware your child or half the
Is
class isn't
behind.
in that grade level.
It's
You don't even
That's
know.
right.
Half the
You
class
wouldn't
is
know. They're not
the
going to
level
tell you that.
below, right? So
That's
there's an
right.
empowerment to asking the right directed questions. So make sure you're either screenshotting, you're copying and pasting those questions, because for your next meeting that you may even be
Yes.
proactive and book, that's your conversation, that's your agenda. Okay.
And I encourage you, please, to book them because these questions should not be asked during the 5-minute parent-teacher interview.
Right.
I repeat, do not ask these questions during the 5-minute. You're not going to get the answers. You're going to get attitude. They're going to be upset. And I'm not here to encourage those types of conversations. These questions are actually to encourage a professional and positive interaction that should be happening throughout the year. So I hope that this helps you because now you can just send an email and say, I just actually got some great tips and I was wondering if we can meet, whereby you can answer the following questions. Give it to them in advance, folks, so they feel like, ooh, where did these come from? But ooh, I have to prepare because they're going to have to answer you. It's not, we're not trying to set them up for failure. You're actually trying to set your child up for success, right? So yeah, send the email, book the meeting, and definitely don't wait till June because we can't do anything by June. There's no way. Yeah. I had something else in my head, but I went on a tangent. Sorry.
It was great.
I was thinking about the questions.
It was so good. It was so useful. I didn't see any other questions coming. So we are going to wind down,
No worries.
everyone. This has been such a valuable conversation
Oh,
for
it's
me,
8 o'clock.
right? Already.
Sorry.
Valuable convo for me, for all the parents who are on the call, and those who will watch the replay. I'm sure the same will be true. So I want to just thank Shayna for, honestly, you are an educator through and through. Like, you're
Aw.
educating students, you're educating parents, you're educating educators and business owners over here, just schooling us. So we're grateful for that. So anyone who would like to contact Shayna, once again, we will have her contact details in the follow-up that we send out. So look out for that. There's different offerings. So choose what is applicable and what you're in search of for your child's French journey specifically. And we're happy to support either way. I will also just share that for the parents on the call, a few of you have reached out to me. So we are doing our March break program next week. It's just 3 days long. So March 10, 11, 12, we're doing a March break French fluency booster. Okay. So as Shayna mentioned, as parents of children who have kids in French schools, yes, our kids are off for a week, but like we're trying to be bilingual, right? So I'm just being very honest about what a week off means. Off, okay, if you're doing absolutely no French at all, there can be gaps if gaps already exist. Gaps can increase. So what we're doing this March break, we do it most March breaks, that we have a little something French going on for them. Okay. 1 hour French lesson for 3 of those days. We're going to have a great time as usual, but it's just meant to keep French in the mix. Okay. We never want it to get out of the mix while they're in these initial stages, especially. So if you are joining us, I know a few of your kids already signed up, so we look forward to seeing you there. If not, happy to send some more information out to you as well. All
I
right.
just wanted to say thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all of your questions, and thank you to those who joined us today online and via the live stream. I'm all about promoting French language learners, so thank you. Merci beaucoup et bonne soirée. Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.